Let's get ready to rumble!
Entrepreneur Weekly, presented by Vero Concepts.
Well, I'm funny how? I mean, funny like I'm a clown, I amuse you, I make you laugh.
Our focus is on entrepreneurs and business owners. Look, nobody else is going to tell me what I'm worth.
I don't know what we're yelling about!
Yeah, overnight success generally takes 10 years of failure.
Loud noises!
No, I don't love money. I love making money.
Show me the money!
With special guests and audience call-ins.
Trailing off, and did I catch a niner in there? Were you calling from a walkie-talkie?
Welcome. Vince, it is good to hear your voice again, and I'm a good liar. So, this week, episode 7 of Entrepreneur Weekly, presented by Vero Concepts. This is Keith Boisvert here with Vince Runza. And the topic this week, evaluate. And that kind of consists of a few things. It's evaluating not only yourself personally, but mainly we're concerned with business. And that can, kind of go into both if you're starting a new business, how to evaluate, what it is you're getting yourself into. Is it the right choice? And also evaluating, your competition, both your direct and indirect competition. And a little bit into if you already have a business, which I'm hoping some of you already are in your journey or at least started it, evaluating what you're doing so far, what you got going, how things have been going, and, overall, just a complete evaluation. So to start off, there's... I like to go into, because this is kind of the core, is your competition. Because if you're either in business or thinking of starting a business, you kind of need to know, granted you need to know and evaluate your own idea, but you need to look at and evaluate your competition, because you're getting into a field or a niche that obviously I would hope has some competition. If you sit back and look at it and say, wow, this is great, there's nobody doing what I'm doing, there might be a reason for that. Either, granted, by all means, there are some great opportunities out there that are just untapped. But more often than not, if there's not a lot of people doing it, there's a reason. And you need to know why and evaluate that. Is it because there's a small market? No markup, no profit, just no customers. There's a lot of things that are involved with deciding, who you're going up against. But ultimately, you want to evaluate your direct and indirect competition, because in the end, they are your nemesis. These are the people you want to beat down and destroy. So a direct competition to you pretty much would be a company that offers the same service or the same product within the same niche as you. An indirect competition is somebody that offers the same thing in the market. For example, if you are into paintball, okay, or airsoft or anything like that, your indirect competition would be entertainment-based businesses, because this is something that's entertainment. Movie theaters, miniature golf courses, things that people would do for entertainment because you're vying for those dollars. Direct competition, obviously, would be another paintball or airsoft type of place within your area. There's a lot of different things in different ways to look at competition. Hopefully, you've done this already. You have gone in and evaluated your market share and what you're going to be doing, and finding that one area where you can excel, because in the end, that differentiating factor is what sets you apart and will make or break you. For example, if you are opening a paintball place, I'm just going to keep using this as an example, and there's 10 around you within 100 miles. Go to these places. See what they do. See how their customer service is, if they even have any. Look at their websites. Look if it's a publicly traded, not that it would be with paintball, but if you're into a market where there's a publicly traded company, buy a couple stocks, a couple shares of their stock. $10, $20, $100. That way you get all their reports. You know exactly what they're doing, what their future plans are, because you're going to get the emails, the reports, everything that has to do with it. Sign up. Speaking of emails, if they got their shit together, they probably have an email list. Sign up for their email list. Use an alias if you don't want them to know who you are. Those are the types. Excuse me. You have to bear with me today. My allergies are killing me. That time of year. But those are the things that really you can physically do. You can go to these locations and browse around. If it's a retail place, walk around, check their prices, look at their online website for sales if they have one. Walk through the store, talk to the staff. Are they knowledgeable? Where is it within what it is? Because nobody does. I don't care who you are. Nobody does everything perfect. There's some aspect that's not being addressed. Could be customer service. It could be a certain within the niche itself that you happen to be in. There could be a certain segment that's being underserved. There's another way that you can set up your business to excel. Maybe it's a great business, but they don't market. And really, your competitive edge may be to say, look, they get great customer services. Their price is pretty good. They're open when they're supposed to be open. Everybody seems happy, but doesn't look like they have a lot of customers, and they don't market. It's all word of mouth. Maybe the bulk of your effort goes into advertising dollars to help really capture that niche. So, there's a lot of things that you can do to analyze where you fit in. And this goes, and both me and Vince know this very well. In the online world, they could have you drilling down to such a sub niche of a larger, part of something that by the time you're done, you could really nail those 20 customers all day long because you've drilled down so much.
Oh yeah. Look, let me give some examples. And one thing I want to address real quick is something that Keith mentioned up front. Niches where there is no competition. You may find the reason there is no competition is there are almost insurmountable challenges to serving this particular niche. It's like, no particular instances of this come to mind, but if you're newly in business or if you're thinking about starting in business and your motivation is to go someplace where there's no competition, don't do that. Don't do that. That's for somebody who's got a lot of experience in starting a business, who is able to pivot, who has the financial backing and the team that would allow them to pivot if they suddenly find that, the reason that there's no competition in this, there are crushing regulations, or it's an almost impossible market to serve because what people want is a unicorn, and you can't deliver a unicorn. One of the things Keith mentioned before was, nobody's perfect at what they do. That's not the purpose of a business. The purpose of a business is not to be perfect. It's to make a profit. Now, with respect to researching your particular niche, finding the particular thing that it is that you want to address better than anybody else, again, make sure it isn't something that's going to be a real onerous burden on you to do that just to make a few bucks. Okay? You're going to have to get faxes back and forth, and you're going to have to ship using the most expensive, FedEx or, postal service, express mail, and there are just so many ways that you can make life easier for yourself so that you have some fun doing this, not just that you found the one place that nobody else wants to compete. And that's vitally important, okay?
Yeah, it's funny you were talking about profit. And while I was doing a little bit of research for the show, I came across a stat from the National Federation of Independent Business Education Foundation. They estimate that, aside from the fact that their name is humongously long, they estimate that 40% of all small businesses are profitable, and another 30% break even. I mean, those numbers are staggering, considering the sheer quantity of small businesses in any town, never mind the country as a whole. You drive around your town and look at all the little small businesses, and if you go by this estimate, the majority of these are either breaking even or not making money at all,
or are losing money. They're hemorrhaging money.
Yeah. I mean,
Really?
that's just it's staggering and it's sad, and I do liken that a lot to education. Not knowing your competition, not knowing your market as well as you think, or there's a lot of things that go into it. Obviously, political climate down to things that go on in your local areas, but just that 30% break even, 40% are profitable, and the balance are losing money, hemorrhaging money. It's pretty scary. It's exciting. It's a challenge, obviously, but there's so many little things that are big things when it comes to the livelihood of your business, and hence the purpose of this program and this show itself on competition. So, we've discussed evaluating your competition. I did that first because I find that that's fairly straightforward. There's a lot of tools out there that you can use. You can go so far as to, really dig deep into a business if you find one that's a direct competition to you, and it's like, shit, if I go into this, these guys are going to wipe me out. If you really want to go into it, you can find more and more about talking to former employees and sales people that are working there. There's a lot of things you can do, but in the end, it's a very straightforward aspect of this. The hard part now is the stuff that's tough for people to do, and most people don't do it because they don't want to, is evaluating yourself and your business. And this can be broken down into two areas, whereas, evaluating for a new business, getting ready to start a business, I've evaluated my competition. Now I've got to evaluate, really myself. And then the other half of that is if you have an existing business, the things that you're doing, the things you've done, the places you're going, and so on and so forth. And as far as a new business, you obviously have to identify the need. What's your mission? What is it that you're trying to do within your niche? And will it appeal to enough of the population, whether it be online or local, depending upon your business, to be profitable and to, not just I can make money on this widget. Can I sell enough widgets to make enough money to pay myself and my staff and stay in business? The second one is I can't say it. Being different. I feel like Foster Brooks. Differentness. Be different. Now, how is your business, different from the others? And we touched on this a little bit already. If you have competitors, what is it that you do differently? What is your main unique selling proposition that sets you apart from everybody else? A pizza place is a pizza place is a pizza place. However, there are things that you can do different, whether it be things that you offer. You're the only one around that sells Parmesan fries. You have a certain style pizza. Whatever it is, you can set yourself different from other people. What is that? You need to know what your unique selling point is. Obviously, market analysis. How big is your market? You could have the great idea, but if 10 people think it's awesome, that's awesome. But you need more than 10 people to be profitable. So how big is it? How big is your market? What is the need? Who really is your target audience? You really need to get into your demographics and find out who it is you're targeting exactly. Is it males, females, both? Is it certain races, religions? Is the market growing? Are you on the upside of it? Is it something that's coming down where, it was real popular and now it's starting to fade a little bit, but there's still some room? All those things you need to be very well aware of, and the other thing too is, go back to pizza places or even better, diners, breakfast diners. People are very passionate about where they go and where they eat, and it's hard to break into certain markets. So, how hard is it to break into a diner business or a pizza business or your widget business? Is there somebody there that really does have a lock on everything, even though they may have some downsides? You're going to have to work really extra hard and probably spend a little bit extra money on marketing to break into that market, regardless of how much room there is based on some, different stuff.
And there's one metric that you should always keep in mind, especially if you're new or you're about to be a new business, and that is, what's the minimum number of customers that I'm going to need? What's the minimum amount of revenue that I'm going to need? Because you could say to yourself, well, geez, I could, scoop up 10 people really easily. And it turns out that in your particular niche and your particular sub-niche, those 10 people will make you wealthy beyond the dreams of avarice. On the other hand, if all you can pick up is 10 people and you need 100, then you may want to rethink your whole business strategy, because unless you've got that minimum amount just to be profitable, you're not going to be a success. So do keep in mind, minimum number of customers, minimum amount of revenue, because if you don't look at that and you're so busy thinking, well, geez, I could offer this and I got this thing and I could have, a great location, what's going to end up happening is you're going to pour good money after bad and you're going to go out of business, period.
Yeah, no, that's exactly the thing that most business plans would actually address. As much as I'm on the fence sometimes about having a formal business plan, that's one of the things a good, solid business plan is if you were going to go to a bank would certainly address. And it's also something that is a pain in the ass to do and often overlooked, and that would have been addressed in that, at least if you're being honest as you're writing it, which leads me to point number 4 out of 5 on opening a new business. How much is it going to take? What's it going to take to open it? Is it a retail place? How much for a storefront? How much to retrofit from what was there previous? How much for inventory? I used to own a speed shop and at one point, it was 800 square feet, and then I moved it to someplace that was 3,000 square feet. And when we moved, I spent $35,000 just for inventory. That didn't include, which I did a lot myself, upfitting the location and signage and all that other stuff, which I think was another $8,000 or $9,000. So I get this $35,000, big truck backs up, unloads it all. I put it all away. I look around. Place is freaking empty. Where did it all go? It's all in these beautiful new racks that I bought. They're on wheels. I can roll them around. And I'm looking around going, oh my God, the place is empty. So, you need to know how much it's going to cost to open your business. And if it's something that is retail related, obviously, how much you're going to need for inventory. And the thing that people tend to overlook because you're excited and you're ready to jump in and, you're the eternal optimist, you got to pay yourself. And what's your deadline for paying yourself? If you have a big family or a family, I don't think they're going to let you go too long without paying yourself and bringing money into the household. So that is one of the biggest stresses in small business is, the first couple of months, I don't care. I'll work 80 hours a week and I don't need to take a paycheck. Okay, that's great. Kudos. But at some point, hopefully sooner than later, because otherwise you're kind of defeating the purpose of being in business, you got to pay yourself. How much are you going to want? You need to figure this in because it's going to play a huge role, not only in your personal relationship if you're married. Trust me, I've been there, but just to feel good, you got to start paying yourself. You are the owner. You're the one putting in the blood, the sweat, the tears. You're the one whose balls are in a vice if this doesn't work because you've invested a lot of money. Maybe you borrowed money from family or from a bank. You need to know at the end of the day or the end of the week when you sit down to do your books, you are going to get paid. And I've unfortunately known quite a few business owners that pay themselves last and they're still in business. And to me, if you're not making money, and somebody told me this a long time ago, and when he first said it, I didn't understand it. And after being in business, I think I'd only had one business at that point. He said to me, he was in a service-based business, but it kind of goes to everything. He said to me, he goes, Keith, he goes, look, he goes, if you're not going to make money, you shouldn't have to work that frickin' hard at it. And I'm like, okay, keep on drinking there, buddy. And I sat back and, a couple years later, I've never forgotten him saying that. And I don't know why I thought it important to remember it, but it did stick with me forever. It's true. I know a lot of people that bust their ass and put in the energy and the time. And at the end of the week, at the end of the month, at the end of the year, they're pulling out maybe $500 here, $500 there, $1,000 here, $2,000 there, and they're making less than if they went and worked at a fast food place or part time at a retail place.
Again,
great.
And this gets
but
this gets back to the whole thing, though. There's a difference between a hobby and a business. If what you're running is like a hobby plus, but it ain't quite a business yet, you need to do some serious reevaluation.
Yeah, it's scary, and the bottom line is the last part of a new business. You got to look objectively at what it is that you're doing. This is going to be an undertaking, and nothing is easy. There's going to be pitfalls. There's going to be some high points and a lot of low points, especially at first. And it's all worth it in the end. However, look at objectively your idea. If you do the things we just mentioned about evaluating not only your competition, but yourself, and you're new to business and you're just starting one up or you want to start one up, think about it. Before you start investing a ton of time and energy, instead of having that, take that excitement that you've got for, oh my God, I got this great, scale it back just a little bit. Stay excited, but look at it objectively. And that's where, Vince was just talking about hobbies. A lot of people say, well, I love doing this. I can't see how I would even change my mind about starting a business doing this. That's great. But you gotta really sit back and look at this and evaluate everything and make sure it's not your love of what it is that you're doing that's blinding you from maybe potentially some glaring obvious issues that are going to prevent you from being successful. Because not too many entrepreneurs, as much as they're excited, there's a high percentage of them that are going to look at things and say, well, I failed miserably, so I don't want to do this ever again. And that's a shame, we all know that one guy that tried something half-assed, and then it was everybody's fault because he didn't succeed and gives up and walks away. And maybe that'd be, probably a good thing for that individual. But I also know a lot of people that are driven and successful or want to be successful, had the right idea and the wrong plan and got soured on it and just never went back to it. And it's a shame because I think the entrepreneurial world, the small business world, may have missed out on somebody that could have been successful.
Yeah, well, many, if not most of the entrepreneurs that we know are what you would call serial entrepreneurs. they'll start a business, and it'll succeed or it'll fail, but they'll start something new, or they'll retool their business. They don't look at it as, I must do this and I must do it perfectly, or I'll stop and I'll never do it again. There's a certain flexibility of thinking that comes with entrepreneurship that says, okay, I started this business so many years ago and it's going along fine, but you know what? I really want to go and try this other thing, and they'll sell off the first business and take the proceeds and go start a new thing. Then it'll work out or it won't work out, but the important thing is they have a flexibility of thinking about business itself that says, I'm not really married to this. I'm not doing this because I love it. I do it because I enjoy it, but I might enjoy doing something else, and something else may come along and it'll do that. But the important thing is, it's that flexibility of thinking that really makes an entrepreneur. It's not, I have this great idea and I love it so much and I must make it work. Don't commit to that, because that's not a business. That's an avocation, or it's a profession, or it's something like that, but it ain't a business. Okay?
Yeah, and I know a lot of people like that, unfortunately, that just refuse to give up the ghost. They're just so stubborn and refuse to give up, and that's way past the point of where they should have just said, you know what, it's time to shift gears. We kind of touched on this last week, actually, or the week before, when we were discussing stubbornness. And like Vince said, you can't be married to your business. There's a lot of things that you're going to be intimate, but don't marry it. Just take it out for a couple dates.
Now, one of the things that I wanted to chime in on with this particular thing is, when you're doing evaluating, one of the things that you're going to want to evaluate is sources of stress or problems in your business. And with this specifically, I'm thinking of, it's known as the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule. It's like 80% of your revenue is going to come from 20% of your customers, or 80% of your problems are going to come from 20% of your customers. Actually, in some cases, it's more like 95% of your problems are going to come from 5% of your customers. And one of the things that you're going to want to evaluate, after all this talk we just made, is make sure you make money, make sure you pay yourself. You may want to fire some of your worst customers, because there are people out there in the world who they have no trouble making trouble for you. It's like, okay, I just started this fire, let's see you put it out. The kind of customer who is abusive or rude or stupid, deliberately stupid about the way they do business with you. It's like you told them, all right, you have to order this thing a certain way, and they don't do that, and then they complain that they didn't get the product right, or the thing was all screwed up. And worse, they're really abusive about it. Now, I happen to have my ancient copy of the 4-Hour Work Week here. And one of the things the author Tim Ferriss talked about was a particular customer who was just driving him nuts. I ordered this thing and it came 2 days late, and he sent it to the wrong person the wrong way, despite repeated reminders. You guys are the most disorganized bunch of idiots I ever had to work with. And what Tim Ferriss wanted to say to this guy is, I will kill you. Be afraid. Be very afraid. But what he ended up saying was basically, sorry to hear that. I've been putting up with your stuff, and it just seems like we won't be able to do business anymore. I'd recommend you take a good look at where this unhappiness and anger is actually coming from. In any case, I wish you well. If you want to do business with us, you have to do business the right way. We'll be glad to take your order, but only if you can conduct yourself without profanity and unnecessary insults. You have our fax number. All the best, and have a nice day. I myself, back in the early days of my ghostwriting and content creation, had a few customers like this. Not many, but just enough that they really stood out in my mind. There was one guy, who shall remain nameless, who ordered stuff from me, but he was a little, uneven. he was a little excitable. And finally, he sent me a request for a 2,500-word article on something or other. I don't even remember what the subject was. But I didn't understand it, and I got back to him. I said, could you clarify this point for me? And I didn't hear back from him. I wrote back to him. I said, look, you wanted this by a deadline. Please tell me exactly what it is that you know, about this particular point. Otherwise, I can't write the article. And he wrote back to me as, you don't command me. You know, you don't give me orders. And this was totally unhinged. It was totally inappropriate. And then I remembered something. The previous article I had written for the guy was how to beat a drug test. And I'm thinking, okay, you're a stoner and you really are disconnected from reality. And he was one of the first customers I ever fired. I said, look, I don't have time for this. I want to be able to devote my time, my energy, and my own resources into building my business, not to putting up with some loopy person who's just going to distract me, get me upset, and most importantly of all, waste my time, because time is money. I've had a couple other customers like that. I had one guy contact me about writing some articles, I don't know, dog training, something like that. I said, just go ahead and write whatever you want. So I wrote whatever I wanted. And he wrote back to me, well, this isn't exactly what I wanted. Here's a 2-page PDF of the exact rules I want you to follow in writing these articles on dog training. And I said, wait a minute. You told me at the outset, write whatever I wanted, whatever way I wanted. Now you're giving me a set of really constricting rules as to how this whole thing is supposed to be done. I said, unfortunately, I don't think I'll be able to complete this project, and more importantly, don't ever contact me again because you are full of shit.
Yeah, it's tough to do, but once you do it a couple times, it's freeing. And I'm not saying just, you know, like you said, but you can't just go around and, you know, vehemently, you know, be.
I will kill you.
Right, as much as you'd like to. You know, and I've had many customers like that, especially in the retail world. You know, you spend 3 hours with them for a frickin' $5 part, and then they turn around and bring it back, and then badmouth you. You know, it's just you know, same thing. My wife just went through the same thing with her photography business. She had a client who real estate wanted a picture for his business cards, and not a very svelte man. He wore a button-down shirt with a collar and tie. He had a wicked tight. And she tried to tell him when he took the picture, you know, you might want to loosen that up just a little bit because it's, you know, she's trying to be nice. It's very tight. Well, when he saw the pictures, because he had his head, he wanted his very specific how he wanted his body, his face turning. I mean, it was only a headshot, but you'd still see the neck. So he gets the thing. He goes, hey, my neck is fat. And she's like, yeah. She goes, yeah, that's why I was suggesting that you loosen the collar a little bit so it wouldn't be so pronounced. He goes, well, I don't like the pictures. And so she asked me, and I said, all right, look, let me try. So I photoshopped his neck so it didn't overhang the collar. And, you know, it looked really good. You couldn't tell. Yeah, I still don't like it. I said, all right, here's what you do. You message the guy back and you tell him, well, thank you very much for your business. Obviously, these are not going to work for you. Tell him to keep the pictures that you've sent him already. No charge because he was supposed to pay afterwards. And tell him, you know, suggest maybe somebody else, or tell him, you know, there's probably some other people out there that are probably better suited for his needs. And she had a hard time. I don't want to lose a customer. I don't want them to badmouth me. There's certain customers, no matter what you do, you could bend over backwards and they're still going to badmouth you. Learning to identify them and doing something about it is crucial. Like Vince said, sometimes you just have to turn around and fire your customers. As horrible as it sounds, it's just not worth it.
And there's also one interrelationship that I noticed, and that is most of your problems are going to come from people who bring you the least amount of revenue. You know, you got the least number of dollars coming in and the most amount of aggravation coming out. Whereas the people who spend the most amount of money will be trouble-free. They'll just keep buying. They'll keep, ordering. And as long as you don't screw up, they're happy. And again, this is a point that I brought up before. You want to go, if at all possible, depending on the type of business you're in, you want to go for the high end of the market. You want to go with rich people, well-heeled businesses, if you're a business-to-business kind of enterprise, simply because these are the people that are going to cause you the least amount of problem, because they're not idiots. They either got a lot of money because they knew how to do business well, or they're rich people, and they want what they want with the minimum amount of fuss and bother. They don't want to cause trouble. They don't want to. They don't want to be on the receiving end of trouble, so they're just going to do business with you. Whereas, if you're going to the low end of the market, if you're going to people who are broke, chances are most of the trouble that you're going to have in your business is going to come from those low end people. There's a little convenience store at the end of my block, which used to cater to, beer, cigarettes, and lottery tickets. But the people who owned it sold it off to some folks who decided, what we're going to do? We're going to get a limited liquor license. And we're going to sell shots for like $2 to all the people who aren't welcome at the local bars. And this place has now become a hellhole because they're catering to the low end of a particular market, and these are all the people who have personality problems or are just generally not the sort of person you'd want to hang out with at a bar, so they go to the corner store and they get their shot there. And it's the kind of place I don't even want to go into anymore. Okay, I swear to God, this guy's sitting on a gold mine, and I know for a fact that he did this without having a long-term plan in mind, because I was talking to him about entrepreneurship a few years back, and I said, every business has a beginning, a middle, and an end. What is your exit strategy? And he looked at me like I had two heads.
Well, unfortunately, That's not anything uncommon, but yeah, I hear you.
But no, seriously, if you're looking at a marketplace and you're wondering, what niche do I want to go with? Rich people, go with people with lots of money, sell high-end stuff. Don't open a discount store. Now it may be that you know all about discount stores, and this would be your fifth discount store. Fine, go ahead, do that. But if you're new to this stuff, go with the high end of the market. Again, looking at that 80-20 rule. If you're dealing with 10 customers who are going to pay you millions of dollars a year in revenue, then great, go ahead and do that. But don't go out and get 1,000 customers. They're going to pay you $1 every other week and bring you nothing but heartache and trouble and consternation, because it ain't worth it. It really isn't. When I was in college, we had a course. The very first year was called Health 101. And one of the questions that the teacher asked us was, what is your goal in life at this point? And, we're young and hungry and we're going to be successful. And she said, mine is freedom from stress. This is a woman, she had grown children. They were off to college or had graduated college and were out in the working world. And I remember I was working a part-time job it was a lawn and garden shop that also sold these fireplace things. And the kind of insert that you put over the front of your fireplace. It's got a glass front and all that. And she and her husband came in to buy this thing, and they were both stressing over this. Okay, because they didn't want to buy the wrong one, and then it stuck in my mind. When you're talking about freedom from stress, when you reach a point like I do, it's like, hey, I'm old. I don't want stress anymore in my life. I had a very exciting life when I was younger. Now I want boring and predictable and dependable, and I don't want excitement anymore. Well, I mean, there's some excitement. That's really good. But for the most part, you will find that once you've gotten yourself into business, if what you bought yourself into was a lot of aggravation, confusion, putting out fires and stuff, you may very well say, okay, I'm making kind of a profit at this, but there's no way I can hand off the stress part to other people to let them handle it. Don't paint yourself into a corner. Please don't do that. Keep in mind, the whole purpose of this business, of going into business for yourself, is eventually it's going to be fun.
Right.
It may not be at the very beginning, because there's so many things. You got information overload. You're working 80, 90 hours a week. But the whole point is to get to a point where you can have some fun doing this, fun making a profit, and you're not working for somebody else who's going to decide what you're worth.
Exactly. And that, all those things come into, evaluating and some of this, and granted, there are always circumstances and things that happen that are way beyond our control. There are things that you just can't foresee. And unless you're, a guru with a crystal ball, you're never going to be able to predict everything. However, a proper plan, proper evaluation, self-evaluation on a regular basis of your business, all those things can help get to that point. But, like Vince said, there are going to be, no matter who you are, you could run into a scenario where you just have to say, you throw up your hands and say,
time to cut bait.
Yeah, this just isn't working. And again, it could be anything. You could be in the perfect location and and you're renting and they sold that building and you had to move to another location, or there's a lot of things. I mean, I know personally a few businesses that just couldn't get financing and ran out of money, before they could hit it big. Plan was good, everything was great, financing fell through. Couldn't raise enough capital to do what they wanted to do. And I personally thought it was a great idea. I think it was brilliant, and everybody I talked to did. Can't finance it. So there's always something. You just have to learn when to walk away. And no matter what, when it comes to evaluating your own business, know your business. Don't pretend to know your business. Don't avoid the things that you think may be painful. And usually that revolves around money. If you do not know what you do with every penny and what you make, what your profit is, what your profit margin is, what percentage of your profits goes to overhead, all those things. If you do not know those things intimately, you got a problem. If you've ever watched any business show, I don't care if it's The Profit, I don't care if it's Shark Tank, anything like that. I mean, granted, those have a lot of reality to them, and so there's scripts. However, they always ask the same questions, and it's amazing how many people do not know the answers to some very simple business-related questions when it comes to their own business. Like, what did you do last year for profit? What was your gross sales? What's your percentage comparison to the year previous gross sales? All those things are very broad and should be understood. So, know your own business, because if you're avoiding those hot topics that you think you just really don't want to know the answer to, when you do sit down to evaluate yourself and your business, you've been lying to yourself the whole time. It's going to be hard to get a good evaluation.
Yeah, because when you watch these business shows, you never hear this. It's like, well, where did you get these projected revenue figures? Oh, they're wildly optimistic.
Yeah, no shit.
They never say that. But in too many cases, that's the truth.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Well, how do you value your business? Oh, I think it's worth $10 million because we did $1 this year, and in 50 years, it's going to be worth, projected what? It's great to be optimistic. That's why if you weren't optimistic, you wouldn't be in business. But you got to be a realist, and you've got to understand your own business, as hard as it is to fathom and to grasp. you lying or trying to put on rose-colored glasses when looking at every aspect, it's detrimental. You need to just really evaluate the reality of what it is that you're doing. More often than not, it's always a good thing, but there are always aspects. Everybody's got a downside that they don't particularly like to, shortcoming, let's call it, that they don't really like to worry about, whether it be accounting or, if you're in a sales business, training. There's always something, and we always tend to skim over it a little bit. Oh, I'm great here. I'm great here. This sucks, but I'm really great over here. You just be honest with yourself, because evaluating a falsehood isn't doing anybody any good, especially if you have employees. So,
And look, one other thing, and it's really important, and I say this because I'm old, you're not going to live forever. You don't have time to screw around with this stuff. You don't have time to have these wild, unicorn, rose-colored glasses kind of views on how your business is going to work out. Be willing to be hard-nosed when it comes to the numbers, when it comes to the figures, when it comes to the metrics, because that'll pay off dividends that go far beyond revenue. Again, you're going to lower your stress level. You're going to say to yourself, if I keep going this way, that's going to be a really big mistake. All I got to do is change this part, and it'll work. I wish I could come up with a really brilliant example of this, but I can't, because it's because there are so many examples of it where if you had only changed one thing by being honest with yourself and saying, this is where the real weakness is for this business, again, you don't want to end up in that 60% of businesses that are either breaking even or losing money.
Yeah.
Because you're going to go out of business. Because if you're just breaking even, you will go out of business.
Yeah, granted, at first, when you're first starting a business, you're going to lose money. Then you're going to start breaking even. Then you should start making money. It's the nature, of most businesses. It takes a few years to become profitable, but that idea of being profitable should be after, you've paid yourself, after, your bills are paid, and, so, but sitting back and just, like we said, being honest, having a complete plan on how to handle things, knowing your competition, where you fit in your own marketplace, wherever that marketplace may be. All those things are recipes for success. And I know sometimes when we talk, it's always like, well, if you don't do this, I'm not trying to be Chicken Little, but there are so many ways to be successful, but unfortunately there's just as many ways to not be successful. So all we're trying to do is bring to attention the things that are potential problems and address them before they become problems. If you are in business and haven't really sat down and figured out where you fit in your marketplace and how you can be different, or you haven't evaluated your competition 100% to see how you can be better, or if you're not evaluating your own inefficiencies or efficiencies, you're juggling some, flaming squirrels here, because at one point, something bad's going to happen.
Yeah. You should see me sitting here nodding as you're saying this, because, look, neither Keith nor I believe in this whole thing of love what you do and the money will come. Not if you don't have a plan, not if you don't have a budget, not if you don't have market metrics, not if you don't have a serious evaluation as to where you're going to be 6 months from now. Because just because you love something doesn't guarantee you success. Okay? Having a solid plan and the willingness to put forth the effort, that's going to give you a better shot. And even then, it's not guaranteed.
Right.
That's why you got to remain flexible.
Absolutely. Well, I think we had another successful show.
Yeah, another 10-minute show.
Another 10-minute show because we're winging it. Yeah. No, this is, again, we could talk about this all day. So, it's a great honor to be able to partake in a conversation that other people may, or hopefully get some nugget of wisdom out of. And maybe, hopefully out of this show, you guys sat back and at least said, yeah, I don't do this, or I should do that, or, you're right, I really haven't looked at my competition objectively, or I haven't looked at myself objectively. All those things we say and we push because we want people to stay in business. We want people to start a business.
We really do. We're not just saying this because we know the fun you can have doing this. We know the rewards that can come from doing this. Most importantly of all, the more people that succeed, the better it is for everybody.
Exactly. And it's, to me, that's the ultimate American dream. I since I was a kid, I don't know why, obviously something happened, but nothing a psychologist probably couldn't figure out. But somewhere along the lines, I've associated the American dream with owning your own business and being a self-made individual. And that's kind of, why I've carried that my entire life. So anything that we can do to help people get to that point in their life, if they so desire, I am all for, and hence why we have Vero Concepts and we do this podcast. So obviously, you guys get a chance. Tune in every week. It's every Wednesday at 7:00 Eastern Standard Time. We have, if you're interested, a free goal setting guide. Very well worth the time it's going to take you to go through this. Even if you're in business, this is a well worth project to sit down and kind of go through and complete all the steps and don't cheat it. But it's free.
Yeah, especially if you're in business and you haven't done it. You haven't sat down and said, "What the hell am I doing exactly?"
Yeah. Yes, it's an amazing resource, and I hope you take advantage of it. But it is for free. It does cost you an email address, but trust me, we don't inundate you with emails. So if you go to veroconcepts.com, that's VERO concepts.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Vero Concepts, and Twitter, same thing, Vero Concepts. We brand it all the way across. So tune in there as well for news and information and tidbits of info that we share on our wisdom, good and bad, that we've accumulated over the years. But once again, I appreciate you guys tuning in and listening. Don't forget, you can always download these. If you know somebody who's interested in business or starting a business or in business, kind of share this with them, let them know, what we do. This is our 7th episode. Go back and take a listen to some of the other ones. There's going to be some nuggets of information that you can get that hopefully that you can apply to your business. And Vince, once again, all I can say is thank you for helping me out. Otherwise, I don't know if I could listen to myself for 45 minutes.
Keith, it's always a pleasure.
All right. Well, on that note, have a good week, guys, and go forth and conquer.